Welcome to the Landlord Diaries, where we talk about midterm rentals and the opportunities behind them. We'll share landlord stories, talk about maximizing investment potential, and discuss how to live the very best landlord life. This podcast is proudly brought to you by Furnished Finder, the leader and largest online marketplace for midterm rentals. Remember to like and subscribe if you enjoy our content.
It's your host team, Kelly Bailey and Katie Lyon of the Landlord Diaries podcast. We come to you every Monday with new great episodes from Furnished Finder hosts all around the nation. And today we get to have a special conversation with Shawn about his arbitrage properties, but we didn't really explain arbitrage. So Katie, what is arbitrage for those listening?
Yeah, arbitrage is a really fancy word, isn't it? It sounds like French or something. It probably is French. I don't know, but it's so fancy. It's really not that fancy of a concept. Really what it means is that you're renting out a property that you don't own. So you're either working with the property owner, you're working with the real estate group, you're working with an apartment complex, whatever it is. You've made this partnership with them to very transparently, you rent their property and then you furnish it. And then you use it as a midterm rental. Some people do it, you can also do short-term arbitrage, but you're using it as something else. Okay. So you're essentially starting with like their base, which is the property, an unfurnished property. You're adding some value and then you're using that as a different type of vehicle, like a midterm rental. So it's a great way to get into the space if you aren't ready to commit to buying, or maybe you don't have the capital to buy. There are some challenges as far as, you need to make sure you get the right partner and you're very transparent about everything, but we've got lots of resources and we've got lots of episodes on arbitrage if you're interested. So I'm sure we've got a playlist for that, so check it out. But let's hear what Shawn has to say about arbitrage, because he is very good at what he does with it too. So enjoy.
Today we talk with an Alabama host, Shawn Costley of Huntsville Corporate Housing Solutions. Shawn has obtained all 7 of his midterm rentals through arbitrage except for one. Today we will talk about these 3 main topics: 5 midterm rental traveler types in Huntsville, Alabama, 5 mistakes not to make in the midterm rental space, and arbitrage best practices. Ooh, that's a lot of great topics. Thanks for being with us today, Shawn. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on. Looking forward to it.
Yes, sir. Well, let's keep it simple to start off with. How did you get started in the midterm rental space?
I think like a lot of people, we got started through Airbnb. We had gone to a couple of seminars here in the area. I was a traditional standard landlord at first, doing your typical year-long leases, monthly payments, that type of thing. And got a note from a friend that said, hey, this might be something you'd be interested in. So we went the Airbnb route for quite some time. And then coincidentally, one of our guests happened to be an insurance adjuster. And so we asked about what she did and how she did it. And I just happened to ask, well, where do your folks stay when they're waiting on their homes to be repaired? She said, oh, places like yours. And so that was kind of an eye-opening moment for us. And we said, well, how do we get involved? And kind of the rest was history. She happened to be a lady that worked at ALE and told us how to get into the game. And since then, we've jumped right in feet first.
Good. A couple things. ALE Solutions is one of the leading providers for relocations and insurance housing. Great website to check out.
We should also add, Kelly, that ALE Solutions is one of Furnished Finder's power users. They use the Furnished Finder website all the time to find term rentals for their insurance placements.
Awesome. Yes. And we see a ton of housing requests come in for insurance clients. All right. So, Shawn, why don't you start off by telling us about your portfolio and why arbitrage was your chosen method for midterm rentals?
Sure. Our first unit was actually a house. We actually purchased one in Decatur, the next city over from where I am in Huntsville. That was kind of our start. The arbitrages allowed us to move a little bit faster, to scale quickly, and the demand pretty much matched that for us. We were fortunately here in a position where almost 90% of the guests that we were getting were direct books, direct bookings. Icing on the cake was Airbnb, but simply because of what was going on here with the growth, et cetera, and the marketing that we were putting into place, we were able to meet with a lot of the apartments here in the area. There was a huge growth of units, so they were a little more relaxed. Sometimes it's a little tough working with them. But in this case, because there were so many new places opening, they were looking for legitimate ways to fill their units. And so, unlike in a lot of places, they were very receptive to what we did and how we did it. So we would meet with them, explain who our customer market was very careful to avoid using uh, OTAs in our discussions with us that we were doing
Online
direct
travel
books.
agencies.
Online travel agencies, absolutely, because sometimes if you come to the table saying Airbnb right off the bat, they start shaking their head violently back and forth. But when they understood what we did and how we did it, they saw the website, they saw some of the reviews and testimonials that we provided. They were very open to allowing us to do or conduct our business there. So we quickly began to grow with demand, and the cooperation's been tremendous here in the area.
All right. Well, we are going to circle back to talking more about arbitrage and some best practices there because it's such a hot topic, and there's just so much potential that any landlord can utilize within arbitrage. But first, let's talk a little bit about the traveler types within Furnished Finder. Furnished Finder started with traveling nurses and medical professionals, and that still is a good chunk of our travelers. But since the early 2014, 2015, 2016, the traveler types have expanded so much. And you've got insurance housing, you've got corporate housing, you've got professional athletes, you have families, you have academics, you've got professors, you have so many different options. So, Shawn, I just want to take a second and go into your main five traveler types because you have been wise enough to kind of hone it into the five types of audiences that you serve with your property. So, walk us through those groups.
And Katie, I'm going to jump in here because we're going to talk about each of the five traveler types in detail that Shawn sees in the Huntsville, Alabama area because they're all very unique and just will be a great conversation. So let's jump into it. So, Shawn, the first one is insurance displacement is one of your largest groups. What can you tell us about that and how Furnish Finder is a part of that process as well?
Sure. In fact, displacements are probably my favorite group. And for the sake of discussion, insurance displacements are those people who lose their homes to, say, a fire or a flood, and they reach out to their local insurance company for help. And the insurance companies will typically use an adjuster to help that family locate a residence to accommodate them during the actual repair time. And so one of the things that we began to notice with Furnish Finder for us was that a lot of our inquiries for displacements were coming from adjusters who have reached out to us through Furnish Finder. Surprisingly, here for Huntsville, more so than your travel nurse market. So we've been pleased to work with them. I tend to find that insurance displacements actually they are our highest paying customers. They're our highest paying guests for a myriad of reasons, primarily because even at the price they pay to us as midterm providers, oftentimes it's a lot cheaper than the cost for them to house them in a hotel. It's very difficult to house a family of five or six. You're looking at two or three apartments. You got to house Fido and little Rex and all the other little pooches and cats and all, and the cost can just be crazy per day. So a lot of times the prices that we quote to them are a lot less expensive. But they also tend to be very loyal in terms of once they find a provider that they can trust and that they can work with, they're willing to work with them, and their time frames of stay are also longer. Normally, for a flood, we find that it's averaging about a 3-month time frame. is usually on average, and then for fires, it's more like 6 to 8 months, and then that of course can adjust depending on the economic demand in your area. If there's a high demand for construction people to do this kind of work and there's just not enough there, those time frames tend to stretch. So it's not uncommon for us to get extensions requested by those displacements as well. So great market. We don't have to market hard to them. They typically find us, and then once we're on their list, they tend to keep coming back.
Our insurance clients, location specialists connecting with you through the tenant leads, direct messages? What % of your bookings are coming from Furnished Finder for your different types?
Today's episode is proudly sponsored by Furnished Finder, the ultimate platform for hassle-free midterm rentals. Whether you're a seasoned landlord or just getting started, Furnished Finder has everything you need to find your next tenant. With Furnished Finder, you can say goodbye to booking fees, markups, and commissions, and hello to direct bookings. If you're ready to experience all the benefits renting your property for 30 days or more, head over to furnishedfinder.com where you can list your property for one low annual price. We make it easy to get started.
For Furnished Finder and insurance, probably our biggest market on Furnished Finder is insurance displacements. By they, I mean the actual adjusters are the ones that are posting. We tend to see them more so than the actual customer themselves.
Okay.
So we'll actually hear directly from, say, a United Properties or a ALE or CRS Online or someone of that nature will post on behalf. We'll eventually talk to the customer, but normally it's not the actual customer themselves who's saying, "Hey, I need a place." It's normally the actual adjuster representative that's
Nice.
that's posting. Mhm.
All right. Well, the second customer type is actually one that I'm seeing a lot in the Austin, Texas area as well, is different technology or companies in that area. So you have Amazon and Polaris. In Austin, we see Tesla requests through the tenant leads, Meta, Amazon, Samsung, a bunch of different tech or companies coming through. So tell us about that specific traveler type.
Sure. I like them because they normally travel in packs of twos and threes. We have quite a few growing industries here in town. You mentioned two of them, Amazon, Polaris. We also have the Toyota manufacturing plant, and this is also a defense contractor hub area. So we get a lot of the Boeings and the Lockheed Martins of the world that are also coming through. They're very familiar apparently with Furnished Finder. So we'll get them calling. I like them because normally you get to ask the magic question, "Hey, is there anybody else that's coming into town that also needs a place to stay?" And normally the answer is yes. We just came across a new group that has come through Furnished Finder, and nice little gem. They're here for the nuclear power plant. About once or twice a year, nuclear plants have what's called an outage, and that's when the plant goes down and people come in to do all the necessary repairs and cleaning and all that. We found that by accident, but oftentimes they will schedule online when their outages are going to be for the year, and you can actually start looking at Furnished Finder. You start seeing them build up as it gets a little bit closer. But they're a great system to have. A lot of times they're paid on stipend when they come through. So we just try to we ask that question as well. Hey, you provide a housing allowance? And normally we try to meet that. But another great group to be able to reach out to, oftentimes coming through Facebook. I'm sorry, not Facebook, in Furnished Finder in groups of twos and threes. So we'll rent out sometimes by the room, or we'll just rent out the entire 2 or 3 bedroom unit depending on what we have available.
You're giving them a little preview because we're going to talk about the Furnished Finder Facebook group in a little bit. So that was a happy accident right
Yeah,
there.
nice Freudian slip there. That was pretty good.
Awesome. You kind of combined one of them, and we can lean into a little bit more.
Sure.
So the defense industry, it sounds like it's very similar to like the Amazon and the Polarises as far as the operations go. But you're seeing, I think, in the defense industry, a lot of star students coming in, and there's a certain season that they come in, I think, as well.
Yes, this is the season. We can normally tell when things are about to take a turn when the interns start calling. So every year, right around the March time frame, you will see an onslaught of graduate students from the various universities here. This is a big engineering town, so schools like Auburn and Alabama, Roll Tide, will come through and are looking for places to stay from the May through the August time frame. So it's kind of like when you see the spring flowers come up. Normally, once those calls start coming, the end of the slow season is coming, and we're always excited to have them come. And they also tend to come in packs of twos and threes, so it's again not uncommon for us to have our three-bedroom properties full of interns that are coming in for the season. You got to be careful with them a little bit just from a cost standpoint and adjust fire accordingly to kind of match their budget. Sometimes they have housing allowances, sometimes they don't. They're also the one time that I will do third party bookings only because their mothers are calling and they're asking on behalf of their kids, oh, I want a safe place for them to stay, and Mama loves them, and do you have a swimming pool? And you gotta put on your dad hat and say, okay, look, we're gonna take good care of them, I promise you.
I love that.
And so we send out a lot of pictures. I tell them about my infamous wife test that I use for all of our units, and people ask me what that is. I said, anytime we consider a unit for arbitrage, I always go at 11 o'clock at night, drop my wife off in the parking lot, and if she feels comfortable walking from the parking lot to the unit, we'll get the place. If not, we will look elsewhere. So that's, they normally can identify, mom can identify right away with that. And so when we tell them that it passes the wife test, we're normally good to go.
And I think interns are often kind of a slept on tenant type, right? Like we don't think about interns as kind of the professional travelers that might have the budget for a furnished rental, but a lot of these are graduate students or they're in professional training programs. They're not always undergrads. And even when they do have slightly more strict budget, like you said, a lot of times they're going to come in a group or they're going to buddy up and they're going to come together. But they are looking for solid, secure housing. I know as a landlord, I've seen more inquiries for internships and trainings and residencies and like contract workers for the summer than I've ever seen before. It's been a pretty cool thing. So I love that you have taken that tenant type that, like you said, might have a smaller individual budget but have made it so it can still work. And that's cool with midterm rentals because you can make it a room rental or a partial, whatever, however you want to make it work, you can. So all right, let's go to the next tenant type and let's talk about, this is a new one, fishing tournament guys. Is that correct?
Yeah, yeah. You know, it, you've got to, one of the things I think you have to do in this market is pay attention to the draws here in your particular area. Huntsville, there's water everywhere. You can't throw a rock somewhere and it not land in a mud puddle, a pond, a lake, or what have you. So they have huge bass fishing tournaments here, a lot of water sports. They have the Paralympics here, for example, every year. So you just have to know when these things are coming in. And then, do things like simply adjusting the title on your post for that particular event. Hey, near the Paralympic Stadium in May, or just in time for the bass fishing tournament in Decatur, Alabama.
Mm-hmm.
Something that's going to make your ad jump out. So if you're tied into the convention center events in your particular town, you can often take advantage of these what you wouldn't consider large, but these people need a place to stay. Soccer tournaments, um, main concerts that come in. I mean, when Miley Cyrus comes into town, Lord Jesus, I mean, everybody, you can rent a tent in your backyard, somebody will take it. But there's these events that come through that you need to you just can't post on Furnished Finder and just throw it up there. Those days are over. You can't do that and get the kind of results you want. But if you can kind of stay in tune, especially in the slower season, with what's coming into town, a simple title change will do wonders. And then, yeah, it works. It really does. So, yeah, fishing is a big one. I'm always asked, will your driveway hold a boat? That was one of the questions. So we actually had that. We actually added that photo to the list, and I do a little live link so you can with all the measurements so that you can see that your boat can fit up into the driveway.
Yeah, that one's handy. So don't miss that. If your driveway or your acreage is large enough, boats, RVs, storage, anything like that is good to highlight, especially since midterm guests are staying longer and may come with a lot of boxes, especially if it's someone that had to move out of their home for a remodel or a relocation or an insurance claim, for sure.
Uh, I love how you said that you have to be active on Furnished Finder, which is, I wish I could get like a tattoo across my forehead that said that because it's so, so, so true. You're not going to sit back and just all of a sudden have these bookings drop into your lap. I hear people who are saying they're not having success or they're not getting leads. I've actually discovered that a lot of travelers and tenants who are looking are going to pick up the phone and call or text you. So your listing needs to look outstanding, amazing, be up to date. That calendar needs to be up to date, and you need to feel really, really confident in it. And then you need to make sure that you're answering calls, you're answering texts, you're looking at the leads. There's so many different ways to connect, but like you hit the nail on the head when it's like you can't just sit back and wait. You have got to get in. So, all right, last traveler type that you see a lot of in your properties that I want to talk about is these work crews. So, tell us a little bit about the work crews and how they are utilizing your properties.
Hey landlords, are you ready to level up your rental game and simplify your midterm rental business? Well, get ready to meet your new best friend, KeyCheck. KeyCheck is your all-in-one solution for stress-free property management. With tenant-paid screenings, online rent payment processing, custom lease creation, and a suite of incredible landlord tools, you'll wonder how you ever lived without it. No more chasing down checks or sifting through piles of applications. KeyCheck helps you organize and manage all things landlording in a simple and efficient way. Make landlord life a breeze with KeyCheck, the game changer for modern property owners. Visit keycheck.com to unlock the power of stress-free property management and take your rental business to new heights.
So yeah, the construction teams is another good source here. Huntsville is Alabama's fastest growing city. So these guys are everywhere. I mean, they're like ants coming out of an anthill. I mean, every road you're on, you look around, there's construction people. Uh, Apartments are getting built just about everywhere now as well. And so these guys need a place to stay. And so what we've done in terms of just trying to stay proactive is we've actually are chasing them down. Some on Furnished Finder. In fact, there was a guy on today that was in the area looking for space, a one bedroom space on Furnished Finder. And again, just you got to move fast on these. That's the other thing that I will say about Furnished Finder. As soon as you get that note that says, "Hey, you've got a lead," you got to get to jumping. I mean, you can't sit back. You got to reach out. So we're hitting them. We're trying to get them on the on email, on the phone number, and sending this stuff out because we want to strike while they're thinking about making the decision. Because if you think you're the only one out there, that's a mistake. There are others. There are other folks out there that are also vying for their attention. But nevertheless, we've had two types of things with the construction teams. You have them come in and they'll literally say there's a group of us. You also have had, or I've had on occasion, the actual company ask, and then they actually rotate people through. So they may rent something for the summer, for example, the construction company. And then what will happen is the carpenters will come in for a couple of weeks, do their phase, they leave. The electrical guys come in, they stay for a minute, do their thing, and then they're gone. Then the plumbers. And so they just, instead of constantly calling us all the time, they'll just say, Shawn, we'll rent it for the summer. We'll let you know who's coming, so who's who in the zoo. But for the most part, they're just rotating people in as needed. We will also at times go out and make site visits. As soon as we see one of those trailers go up, we'll
Mm.
go out and reach out to them that way as well. Some of them they don't know Furnish Finder. They'll leave it to their guys to just kind of find a spot. But anytime we can make it easier for them and put a little postcard out on that notice board that always sits outside all the trailers with all the license information. We'll smack a little
Good idea.
notice or something up on there and have them come through. But another great source. The only thing I will caveat is you need to, if you do offer that service, you need to get one of those boot cleaners that you can set outside your door,
Oh, that's a good
because
idea.
these guys will tear up some carpeting with
Okay, good idea.
mud and construction boots. So put one of those
That's
out.
a good idea.
Yeah,
Set them
put a
up for
note out.
success, right?
Yeah, put a note out that says, "Hey, remove your shoes before you come in, or you will be doing some steam cleaning afterwards." But other than that, they're a great tenant to have.
That actually leans into a couple questions in regards to this. One, while we're on the cleanliness topic for work crews, do you typically, on all these different traveler types, have you found that you typically return their full deposits, or is there a certain traveler type that maybe expect to replace the linens or things like that? And then also. Are any of your operations different with these traveler types, since you're saying some of them are the travelers themselves booking while others are the companies booking? So do your operations change at all with that? So those two questions.
Yeah, a little bit. Actually, in my experience, I've had more difficulties with tourists versus work folks. I think work people tie their stay to their job, so they're not gonna, for lack of a better word, jack your place up. I've found as often, because there's always that concern that you're gonna pick up the phone and say, "Hey, Mr. Supervisor, Mr. Jones is cutting up and tearing my place up.
Mm-hmm.
So do something about it." So we've never had problems or challenges. Now we've had requests, for example, with construction teams. Sometimes they don't mind bunking up, so they may say, "Do you have some twin beds that you can substitute out for queens? Because we're going to put two guys to a room or three guys to a room." Also, construction guys tend to want to pay every week, which can be a little bit of a pain in the butt. But hey, money's money.
Yep.
I'm normally open to doing, as long as it's not 20 guys asking me. But normally they like to pay week to week. And same with like your Polaris and these guys get paid every week. And they're used to kind of setting up their budgets that way. So we've had to adjust a little bit with those kinds of practices. In terms of extra cleanliness, things of that nature, normally we it's about the same across the board.
Okay, good.
They're some groups, they like to stretch, construction teams. They may want a little bit more on the cookware side. For some reason, they like to cook at home. So when their day is over, they don't want to go anywhere else but to the place and relax. So they'll ask for extra pots, pans,
Nice.
that kind of thing. But no major shifts we've had to do, other than probably pay collection. The collection of the rent. That's the biggest one.
Yeah. So on the deposits, let's touch on this quickly. What do you see is that you like to ask for, like a 1 bedroom versus a 3 bedroom? What do you ask for your deposits, and have you found that you're typically giving the full deposits back?
Oh yes, I have yet to not give a full deposit back. We've been doing this year. This is what, going into the fourth year. We've never had a situation where we've had to do a full deposit. The things that break down, especially for your midterm and long-term stays, you're going to change sheets. You're going to change time. I mean, not to sound sexist, guys, boy, there's a saying, say the sheets the whole time they're there. Sorry, men, but that in our case that seems to be it. I mean, you can stand a towel up. They've used it so much. But there's just an expectation that those kinds of things are going to get used. So, but we've never had to replace beds, or somebody breaks a glass or two. I don't get too spun up over
Mm-hmm.
those types of things. But in terms of major furnishings, that type, we've been fortunate. We try to screen very intensely our guests when they come through. And again, because we're dealing with work people for the most part, job related stays, we just tend to find there's a little bit more of a focus on maintaining a good, proper place, and them exercising good care while they're there.
Shawn, this has been such a great conversation on the 5 traveler types that you see frequently in the Huntsville, Alabama area. feel free to jump in on YouTube in the comments if you want to share some more traveler types or tips about traveler types. So on to our second topic, 5 mistakes not to make in the midterm rental space. And one of them is close to my heart, which is to live at the property if you have the opportunity for a weekend. Or when Dave and I got started, we'd actually live there for like a week or two when we first got started. Now, that's not always the case. And when you build your systems, you don't need to do that. But it is a fun one if you've never done it to try out one time and see, what does this property actually feel like and operate like to our guests. And one of mine was shower heads. When you actually get into these homes and you take a shower where your guests are going to be showering and you realize, wow, the flow is actually not very great. I need to switch the shower head out, or it needs to be descaled because there's a lot of hard water buildup in it, or like ways to operate it that you're not familiar with. So, Shawn, you had some really good tips for why you live in the property and things you found out through doing that.
Oh yeah, and what I would say, it's also a good way to get at least your first review. Invite a friend for their birthday or anniversary or what have you. Hey, if stay at my place, absolutely no charge. All you have to do is just tell me what you liked and didn't like about it, and write a review. And they look forward to that. In fact, we got a couple mooching type friends. Every time we open up a place, they just can't wait to, hey, you need somebody to stay in one for you. But there's the small things that you'll notice. We are a wine and pizza as a welcome gift type folks. And I remember the first time we did it, everything was perfect, laid out very nicely, left the wine and pizza and forgot the corkscrew. Just never crossed my
Uh-huh.
mind. And I get this call at midnight saying, Mr. Costley, there's no corkscrew in the entire place. So it's the small things, like you said, the showers, that's a
Uh-huh.
big one. Water pressure is a concern that comes up quite a bit with folks. So just staying there to see those things firsthand.
I think even things like plungers and your how you put your gift baskets together. Like, let's touch on some of those too.
Yes, you want to get a "Don't call me at midnight" plunger. That's the big monster plunger. You don't want the cute one that you normally see in the corner somewhere that you wonder, you need the big monster one that you get
Not the
from
one that
Home
looks like
Depot.
it's never been
Yeah.
used, huh?
So right. So we affectionately call it "Don't call me at 2 a.m." plunger. That's the one you need, the big one.
Nice.
So that is an absolute mandatory one. And then we actually set out as I mentioned a little bit earlier, we have a wine and pizza as our welcome. What we found in our particular guest and study, we use the Schlage lock so we can actually tell when people are coming into the units. And what we found was that the majority of our guests get there at night and they're from out of state. So we would leave a note that says, "Hey, welcome to the unit. Thank you for allowing us to host you. Please feel free to enjoy the wine, the coffee, and oh, by the way, we left your pizza in the fridge, in the freezer." And actually on the
That's
table,
genius.
yep, on the table we have a pizza tray, the wine glasses, and the bottle of wine, and a handwritten note that says all this. And then call me if you have any issues. And we get more calls and more notes because folks, when they get there, one, you don't want to leave once you get there. It's at night. Two, you don't know where the nearest McDonald's is. Three, you either have hungry kids or you're hungry yourself. So being
Mm-hmm.
able to throw that pizza, look, they might leave the wine. They eat the pizza. They eat the pizza every time. But it's the one thing that we constantly get compliments on because it saves the day for them and the kids to be able to throw that pizza in the oven. We put the tray out there so my oven doesn't get too messed up and serve the pizza and the wine. So it's just been something that's been part of our brand that we've used. And it's been very, very successful and often talked about.
That's huge, though, just serving them with hospitality. I think also a couple other things that can set you up for success. We leave like a small toolkit in all of our units, like with a hammer, a couple screwdrivers, because what we have found is if a cabinet handle gets a little bit loose, they'll take care of it, right? And it's a non-issue. A plunger, basic cleaning supplies, right? I don't expect the tenants to clean, but sometimes people they like to be able to wipe up or clean the mirrors or whatnot. A vacuum, a Swiffer. I've had a lot of tenants ask me, "Is there a vacuum? If not, I'll bring my own." And I'm like, "You do not need to bring your own vacuum." And it's not like a $500 Dyson. It's a basic
Oh
vacuum.
yeah, it makes a
A
difference.
pack of batteries we always have, and
Yep.
like starter like laundry detergent and toilet paper. Like, we're not going to provide your paper products for the whole time you're there, but we will surely get you started. But a lot of those things, like, you're right, it's just allowing people to be self-sufficient, which lets them feel at home.
Oh yeah, we leave a lot of what you just talked about, exactly. Trash bags as well, and the laundry stuff makes it different. We leave like two or three pods for them to, like I said, we're not feeding the neighborhood, but we'll leave enough for them to comfortably settle in and do what they need to do without having to run to the Walmart to, you
Yeah.
know.
So, a couple things just to wrap up this first one of the value of living in the property is one thing that the Furnish Finder does is we have house rules in the edit listing process that kind of prompts you to think through some of these things you may not always think about, such as, making sure to give them the Wi-Fi code, what day is trash on and recycling, things like that, how to operate your appliances. And so, fun fact, we've got our Furnish Finder Facebook group, which is called Furnish Finder Midterm Rentals for Travel Nurses, Corporate Travelers, and more. It has over 140,000 members. So if you ever have a question you want to ask, you're going to
Absolutely.
get all sorts of responses, but it's hundreds of responses a lot of times that can point you in the right direction. Or you can do a topic search on things such as cancellations, and then you'll see conversations that have already happened over and over again on that topic. So the one thing I want to add about this specific question is recently I posted a question in the group that said, "Hey, travelers, what items are frequently missing from your midterm rental home?" And the engagement was amazing. Working cano burner was 98 likes. A box fan, hangers, full length mirror, and Tupperware had 75 likes. And hangers, scissors, and knives that actually cut are 66 likes. So one thing that I started doing, which I haven't had anyone request it, but just putting like a knife sharpener in the home or in your flip kit so that you can check them on those flip days. So that was a fun conversation. Let's go ahead and move on to number 2 of things not to mistakes not to make in the midterm rental space. And you said, Shawn, not doing any marketing. What would you like to add there?
Oh yeah, this is paramount. When Airbnb and all these OTAs first began, um, you could just kind of throw something up and just let it go, and people were renting. Now those days are kind of gone, and in order to differentiate yourself, or differentiate between a hobbyist and someone who's doing this as part of a livelihood, is you've got to reach out and do your marketing. And a lot of all of our efforts really focus, and you could spend days talking about this, but our marketing centers around really 5 P's, and it's been like that since the beginning. It's people, place, product, price, and promotion. Those are the 5 P's that you got to master when it comes to this stuff. So
Love
whether
it.
it's through changing your titles in Furnish Finder to match the seasons, if it's football season, if it's winter time and you got ski opportunities in addition to being near the hospital, if you've got a major event going on in town, the big ones, that just happen in your particular city, you've got to be able to market your ad or your post to that. You've got to follow up with your previous guests. I mean, a lot of times we're one and done. We just keep hoping for the next person, the next person. You forgot about Jimmy who was there last year as an intern. Hey, is Jimmy coming back this year? Does he have some friends that are coming back this year? So you've got to reach out, whether it's, email, constant contact, MailChimp, web pages, those types of things. You've got to get out there. While I greatly enjoy Furnish Finders and that for what it does and what you're capable of doing, putting yourself on as a Google business page in your respective area. That was when our direct bookings blew up because there's a sense of legitimacy when you do certain types of marketing. When you have a web page, it differentiates you. When you have a legitimate email address and you're not, like the one guy, his name was Bigfoot 707 at Gmail. Nobody's going to look at that
Right.
and consider it, that you're serious. So small marketing steps like that. But if you start to look at just brainstorming off of people, who is your avatar? Place, where are you and what's happening in your area? Price, how are you doing competitively, with your product? What, define a two-bedroom. If it's going to be corporate, what is it going to have? If it's going to be tourist, what is it going to have? Promotion, what works best in your area? Are they email folks? Are they flyer people? Are they direct visits? Are they, showing up at a site supervisor's trailer on a construction site someplace? You've got to get out. You've got to market. You have to, or you're gonna, market or die. That's pretty much the adage that we've taken.
Yeah. Well, does our marketing director have anything to add to the marketing conversation?
I just think it's important to remember that, like you said, even with your email addresses, everything that you do that interacts with someone else is marketing, down from your email address to how you email to your messaging to things people more traditionally view as marketing. It's all marketing, right? Marketing to me is just the messaging and how we're communicating and sending those messages. So little steps are great, right? And if you have one property, you might not need a website. Use Furnish Finder listing as your website, but make it really good, right?
Yeah.
Don't skimp over those little things. And if you need, like you said, like a more professional email address, Gmail's free, guys. Like you can make a professional email and have it on Gmail still. Just don't make it
Mhm.
Bigfoot, right? So these small steps can go a really long way. And I just think it's important not to overlook them. All right, so I'm looking at the next two mistakes we don't want to make, and I'm thinking we can combine them because one of them is not keeping enough funds for a reserve or slow season, and then also being slow to pivot when you need to. So, Shawn, I'd love to have you elaborate on those quickly and just kind of hear your thoughts behind them.
Sure. Just about everywhere that you have a unit available has what we call a slow season. Sometimes it's more apparent than others. Maybe up north, if you're in a ski area, there's a season for skiing, and then there's a dry season where you might get some hiking people up there. You might get, some retreat type folks that just want to, no one else is going to be up there, so they want the solitude. But for the most part, you're going to have slow seasons. One, you need to recognize when that is. Now, on a side note, if you're in the insurance displacement market, there is no slow season because nobody picks a season to get into an accident or anything of that nature. So that's a
But it's
big
also
plus.
random, right? Like
Yeah, that's exactly.
it's
If you
not
could,
always constant.
right, if you can lock it in, and there's no bigger blessing than for somebody's pipes to break in October and then you've got them for the next 6 months. I mean, not to be funny, but at least during the slow season you've got an insurance displacement in your unit. But you need to recognize when that is. Typically here it's from you get a little bump up in December around the Christmas holiday, and then it's pretty quiet from there until around March. And so you've got to, in your planning, realize you're still going to write checks for rent in January and February. And if you've got 7, 10 units averaging just, let's just say $1,500 a pop, that's a lot of money to be dashing out if you didn't plan for those 7 months of famine versus 7 months of feast or whatever that you had. So you've got to balance that out and know that in your planning that yeah, it might be profitable in June, but that money's got to carry you through until the next season.
You reminded me my dad's one of the only ones along with the roofers and the automotives. My dad has done windshield replacement. He owns his own company for 30 to 40 years now, and he loves it when hail comes because he's constantly steady. He's booked for like a month or 3 months out. So I hear you there. Um, I think this last, the fifth part, we can actually tie into arbitrage best practices as well, our final segment, because exit strategy, you guys are both in arbitrage for the most part and have these contracts in place with your complexes or owners rather than the properties that you are going to be underwater at the end. So what does the exit strategy look like if for some reason you need to part ways with an arbitrage partner or pivot a little bit?
I know for me, we have just made our decisions at the true end of lease turnovers. So if we signed it for a year and it ends in June, normally that's when we'll choose to renew. The difficulty that comes with that and why it's sometimes better to get units in the off season is June is in the middle of tourist season. So, here you come again at the end of June wondering if you should renew another year, but it's right dead in the middle of the most exciting part of the season for us, as opposed to January. However, I have found in the business that we do that surprisingly, apartments are very understanding when it comes to dealing with corporate providers.
Good.
They do this all the time. So yeah, you incur whatever penalties you incur for having to break the lease early. But if you're giving them notice and the like, I've had them welcome us back, at the next go around when those things have. You've been a great client, no issues, no drama. They just look at it as a part of business. So we do spend a lot of time looking at other places because we're looking for the best prices. And we've had situations even where leasing companies have lowered prices for us to keep us as guests. Where I've been able to say, hey, listen, we'd love to stay, but the place down the street is offering a special now. Everybody's doing specials. They're offering a special. Can you at least beat the difference in price? And
Mm-hmm.
oftentimes they will for the sake of keeping us, and it saves me from moving down the street and paying money to move 2 blocks with the U-Haul. We'll go ahead and stay if they bring the price down $100 or $200 to make us more competitive. So it's a little bit different than if you're a single person just trying to rent an apartment.
Yeah.
They understand how the process works, so we've not had any issues.
Katie, how about you? What's your exit strategy for arbitrage?
Arbitrage is great for us because it lets us continue to build our portfolio without having to have the means for another down payment or us really being ready to purchase the next one. We are still purchasing, but at a slower rate than our portfolio is growing thanks to the arbitrage, right? But what I really like is every year when my lease comes up for renewal, I get to sit here and say, hey, how'd that go? How'd my numbers turn out? Did I like that? If yes, great, I'll renew again, sign on the dotted line, and sometimes I get to negotiate the price. If it didn't go as well, I'm like, well, no harm, no foul, right? Like, I don't have to sell a property. I don't have to, um, all I have to do is move the stuff and kind of say goodbye. So I really enjoy that part of arbitrage. Um, but I think for us, it's the long term or the exit strategy is it's working really well and we really enjoy it. I think a key part is finding that good partner, which we could do 10 episodes on. But I think it's just more arbitrage allows you to think less in terms of 10-year time periods and more in 1 to 2 year time frames. And it gives you that ability to pivot quickly if you need to, right? Which I really like.
Shawn, any advice on how to find those arbitrage partners?
Yes, I have gone on to a couple of different methods. I will reach out through apartments.com and literally just reach out with a prefab message to the leasing offices telling them what we're doing. Uh, and the responses are normally pretty good. Like I said, right now the demand is pretty high. There are certain builders who are actually looking now for OTAs. An interesting nugget is Graystar, who's a major builder now, is actually looking at doing some Airbnb type collaboration with providers, which is interesting. I'm still researching it and trying to get some details, but I've seen a few articles in that regard. So you want a group that's going to be friendly, that's going to allow you to do the things that you need to do as a provider. You know, you want to be able to get that digital access. You don't want to be chasing lock boxes all over the place. You know, those types of small things. You know, are cameras really an option or not? So if you have your initial questions up front that you can ask about, can you get in that first month for free and do your setup and all? So there's some basic kind of interview-ish type questions that we will ask to facilitate our decisions to join or not join. But no, it just come forward, be honest. You know, don't sneak in and then try to Airbnb or try to VRBO it
Good
out and
point.
that type of thing. You will
Hmm.
get caught. More and more builders are looking. Trust me, they are out there. I've had colleagues try to sneak in and do some things, and next thing you know, they're getting put out because somebody from the company is on
Hmm.
Airbnb posing as a guest. So
Yeah.
just be
Well,
honest in what you're doing.
Well, Shawn, I think we could talk about arbitrage all day long, but we are out of time. So, what we are going to do is I'm going to point you guys to the fact that on YouTube, on our Landlord Diaries YouTube channel, go to the tab that says playlists, and we have an existing playlist about arbitrage conversations, about corporate housing conversations, or any other specific conversations in the midterm rental space you kind of want to dive deeper into. And that's a nice thing about all of our episodes is they don't have to be watched in order. And honestly, guys, they've been pretty timeless so far. So I don't think even if you went back and listened to our most popular one, which was like one of our first three, you'd still get great value from that today. So keep that in mind. And Shawn, we really appreciate you being here. If anyone would like to connect with you, how would you like them to do so?
Sure, they can reach us at info at Huntsville Corporate Housing Solutions.com. It's kind of long. Or you can go to our website as well and reach out to us there. Just dial the number. It rings surgically. My phone is attached to my hip, so you'll more than likely get me if you call. But feel free. I love collaborating with other folks that are out here in this space. I've been a big believer of collaboration over competition. So
Hmm.
I'd be more than glad to help provide some advice, some insight. No problem at all.
Well, I'm sure people are going to be reaching out to you. Great conversation. If you are loving our show, don't forget to subscribe, share this episode with a friend, leave us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. And we hope to see you guys next Monday. Have a great week, everyone. Bye.